Musketeers.
Welcome back, guys, to another Clash Royale video. Today we're taking a look at this PEKKA Three Musketeers strategy that is actually surprisingly strong, especially in tournament battles. Now here's the deck itself. There are a couple of cards in this deck that I consider fundamental to any PEKKA Three Musketeers strategy. Obviously you need the PEKKA as well as the Three Musketeers, but you also need the Zaspel as well as the Elixir Pump because it's a pretty expensive deck. Now stuff like the guards can be replaced with Barbarians or stuff like that. The Ice Spirit is kind of a wild card, but I have it in there because for one Elixir it offers so much value, and the Ice Wizard as well as the Princess can be switched out for maybe a Poison Spell, a Musketeer, or even a Valkyrie. But I will be honest with you guys, the deck won't be nearly as strong as it could be with both of those legendaries in it, just because the Ice Wizard as well as the Princess offers so much value for only a 3 Elixir cost each. Now let's go ahead here, take a look at a couple of replays of me playing in a recent tournament. So here we are, guys. This first battle is against a Sparky user, but unfortunately I have a pretty bad card rotation. The Elixir Pump is way at the back of my card rotation, like literally the last card in my card rotation, which is really unfortunate because this deck does cost a ton of Elixir, and by the double Elixir period, ideally you want to have at least 2 pumps down. That way you can afford some pretty aggressive pushes. Now unfortunately, it's going to cost me a ton of Elixir to cycle all the way to that Elixir Pump because a lot of the cards in this deck cost a bunch of Elixir. If you're using a fast cycling deck with the Elixir Pump in it, it's not really the worst thing in the world if the pump is all the way at the back of your card rotation because it doesn't cost you too much Elixir to cycle all the way to get to it. But like I said before, with this deck having so many expensive cards in it, I won't have the Elixir Pump until later on in the battle. Now I'm going to soak up that damage there on the right hand side by that Musketeer, and then I'm going to do a split push with my 3 Musketeers right in the middle of the base. Now one of the greatest strengths of the 3 Musketeer card is its ability to put on so much pressure on both lanes and force your opponent to spend so much Elixir defending both of their towers. And usually, either way, you'll at least get a little bit of damage done to one of the towers and also force your opponent to spend a ton of Elixir defending. And because I use those 3 Musketeers and force my opponent to spend too much Elixir defending, he isn't able to support the Sparky with anything, and it's pretty easy to take out with the Ice Wizard as well as the Princess combo. Now I'm going to go ahead and support this Princess with an Ice Spirit for only 1 Elixir, and this is why I had the Ice Spirit in this deck, because it only costs 1 Elixir and it has so much versatility. The reason I use the Ice Spirit to support that Princess is I knew he wouldn't be able to use anything to counter it like Goblins or Fire Spirits or Skeletons, because they would just get frozen by the Ice Spirit, and that would give my Princess more time to damage that tower. Now here we are at 1 minute 20 seconds left in the battle, finally getting my first pump down, and that's what I mean, guys, about having this deck cost so much Elixir and being unfortunate having the pump as the last card in the rotation. Now the way I counter these Sparky strategies with this PEKKA deck is I wait for them to start setting up a PEKKA push and then use the PEKKA in the exact same lane, because the PEKKA can actually tank like 3 or 4 hits from a Sparky, and she'll also take out the tank in front of that Sparky pretty quickly, and then afterwards you'll have a pretty strong counter push. Now take a look at this defense. The PEKKA is still alive, taking out the Giant as well as the Hog Rider, the Sparky going down, and take a look at this counter push I have. Like I said before, PEKKA going up there with the Princess on the right hand side, and I'm going to go ahead and use the 3 Musketeers there on the left hand lane, just because I know my opponent doesn't have a Fireball in his deck at this point in the battle. You don't usually want to use your 3 Musketeers together until you actually know what kind of cards your opponent has. If they have a Poison Spell or a Fireball in their deck, then don't use them together unless you know it's out of card rotation. Now we have a 1 crown lead here. PEKKA going out there with the 3 Musketeers still alive in the back, doing good damage to that tower. Unfortunately, he drops his Giant down to push all the Musketeers back to tank, but it's not going to be enough for him. In a couple of seconds, I'm going to get the 3 crown victory. Here we are, guys. Let's go ahead to the next replay. So here we are, guys, facing off against a Giant Bowler Poison strategy, which we all know is dominating tournaments right now. But this PEKKA 3 Musketeers deck is actually a pretty strong counter against the Giant Bowler strategy, because the PEKKA doesn't get knocked back by the Bowler, and she also kills the Giant in front pretty quickly, and then afterwards you have a pretty strong counter push. Now fortunately, in this battle here, I do have the Elixir Pump in my starting hand, so I'm going to go ahead and place it down in the middle of my base between both of my towers, because I don't know if my opponent is using a miner yet. Now he's setting up a pretty strong Giant push on the right hand side, but take a look at how I counter this. Ice Wizard going down to slow down the Giant. Gonna go ahead and use the guards in the backstory as well as the Ice Spirit to freeze the Bowler. Now normally that Bowler would have taken out all the guards pretty quickly, but with that 1 Elixir Ice Spirit, that allowed the Bowlers to win that trade. Now unfortunately I had to soak up a ton of damage from his Giant there. on the right hand side, and that's one of the downsides with this deck, is sometimes earlier on in the battle you have to soak up a little bit of damage to your towers. But let me tell you guys, late game in the double elixir period or even overtime, you can set up some pretty strong pushes and some pretty strong comebacks. Gonna go ahead and use the Three Musketeers there to counter that mini P.E.K.K.A. And one of the things I love about the Three Musketeers is they're really strong on defense, placed down right in the middle of your base, and then afterwards they put on pressure on both lanes. As you can see, the one Musketeer on the right hand side went back to do a good counter push, doing a little bit of damage to that tower, bringing it down to 1900 health. Now Prince is coming up here on the right hand side, and then my opponent is going to use that poison spell. Unfortunately for me, he misses the elixir pump with that poison spell. Now unfortunately I used a guard right there. I really thought the princess would survive that poison spell, but unfortunately she did not. But in the end, a couple of the guards went back there, getting a little bit of chip damage onto that tower, bringing it down to 1400 health, so it wasn't all bad. Now unfortunately right here, I'm forced to use the Ice Wizard in front of my P.E.K.K.A. just because I didn't want the Musketeer getting any more damage onto the tower, because by herself, she probably would have finished off that tower on the right hand side, giving my opponent the 1 crown victory, or 1 crown lead, sorry. Now the P.E.K.K.A. going up here on the right hand side, once again doing a split push. Now it's especially important that I do a split push with the Musketeers in this battle here, because my opponent is using the Bowler, and the Bowler is actually a pretty strong counter to the Three Musketeers if he can hit them from range with a tank up front. If he doesn't have a tank up front, the Musketeers take him out pretty quickly. But the Musketeer there on the left hand side doing work to that tower, bring it down to less than 1000 health, and that's one of the greatest strengths with this strategy, is doing damage to both towers at the exact same time and putting on so much pressure. Gonna go ahead and use the guards to counter that mini P.E.K.K.A. I have a P.E.K.K.A. going up on the left hand side, putting on some pressure. He's forced to use the guards as well as the Bowler to defense, sorry. Gonna go ahead and use the Three Musketeers in the middle of my base once again on a split push. And this way, even if he defends the left hand lane, which has all the pressure, that one Musketeer by itself on the right hand side is gonna do some decent damage for me. And as you can see, she's bringing that tower all the way down to 500 health, but I still have the Ice Wizard on the left hand side getting chip damage done, giving me the 1 crown lead. And with only a couple of seconds left, that's gonna be the victory for me, guys. Let's go ahead here and take a look at the next replay. So here we are, guys, facing off against another giant Sparky user, and this battle is a pretty long one. It goes into the late overtime, only because I made a bunch of mistakes later on in the battle where I could have won the battle earlier. And what I want you guys to do, if you want to, is pay attention later on in the battle and let me know in the comment section below moments where you notice I could have won the battle but made a mistake. I'm going to try and point out a couple of ones to you guys. But my opponent here, starting to set up a Sparky push on the left-hand side. I know he's going to use a tank in front of that Sparky, so I'm going to counter it with the P.E.K.K.A. on the same lane. Down goes this Giant. Now, like I said before, the P.E.K.K.A. can actually tank a couple hits from the Sparky, and that's one of the reasons I love this strategy. Going to go ahead and use the guards in the back as well, just because I want to keep the Barbarians away from the P.E.K.K.A. for now, because I want the P.E.K.K.A. taking out the Giant. Now, notice that clutch Ice Spirit there for 1 elixir, freezing the Sparky, resetting its attack timer once again, allowing the P.E.K.K.A. time to take out all those Barbarians, and the P.E.K.K.A. is still alive, taking out the Sparky. So not only did I not take any damage from that push, I also have an elixir pump alive because of it, and I also have a little bit of a counter push, and my opponent is forced to spend more elixir on that Valkyrie as well as the arrows to take out my push. And take a look at this huge elixir advantage I'm developing. I have 2 pumps down, and I also have 1 more elixir than my opponent. So like I said, I'm developing a pretty big elixir advantage because of that clutch defense on the left hand lane. And now I'm going to go ahead and use the Princess in the back behind my King Tower because I'm not ready to do a P.E.K.K.A. push. I know I'm facing somebody using a Sparky strategy, and I want to counter the Sparky on my side of the arena. If I were to use the P.E.K.K.A. first before that Princess, the P.E.K.K.A. would have actually met his Sparky on his side of the arena, which is something I don't want it to happen. So that's why I delayed on the Sparky use. But right here, he's going to go ahead and use the Giant in front of his Sparky. Like I predicted, going to go ahead and use the 3 Musketeers on a split push. And thankfully, he's spending all of his elixir on the left-hand lane. And I have 2 Musketeers on the right-hand side doing a counter push, getting a little bit of chip damage onto the tower. His Sparky is still attacking my P.E.K.K.A. Going to go ahead and use those guards to protect my Musketeer. But take a look on the right-hand side. Those 2 Musketeers by themselves bring that tower all the way down to 1300 health. And both of my towers still 100% full health pretty much. Gonna go ahead and place down another pump in the middle of my base. Now, one thing I do want to say about this P.E.K.K.A. strategy is it's a lot stronger in tournament standards than it is on ladders. And the simple reason being, for most people, like free-to-play players, it's really hard to get your epics higher than level 4. And a level 4 P.E.K.K.A. is balanced against a level 9 Crown Tower, level 9 Commons, level 7 Rares, and stuff like that. So at tournament standards, she actually feels like a beast and extremely strong. But in ladder, when you're facing people that have level 10 or level 11 Crown Towers, level 10 or level 11 Commons, and level 8 Rares, the P.E.K.K.A feels kind of weak, and often in ladder play, I'll get the P.E.K.K.A onto their side of the arena, and then she'll get distracted in the middle of the base, and then die before she makes it to the tower. But in tournament standards, she'll actually make it to the tower and get a couple hits off. That's a huge difference between tournament play and ladders, so that's why I recommend for most people that are free-to-play players that don't have their epics up to a crazy high level, use this deck in tournaments, but I wouldn't recommend it on the ladder unless all of your cards are up to a comparable level of the opponents that you're facing, especially the Three Musketeers, because at tournament standards, a Fireball does not kill her, but on the ladders, I'm often playing people that have a level 8 Fireball versus my level 7 Three Musketeers, meaning the Fireball will one-shot my Three Musketeers, which makes a huge difference, guys. And this strategy just really isn't effective if you're facing against somebody that can one-shot all of your Musketeers with a Fireball. Now, guards going up on the right-hand side with 2 Musketeers as well as a good push on the left-hand side, and take a look at what I do right here. He drops down a Valkyrie. If I would have used the Zaspel to help those Musketeers on the right-hand side, the Musketeers would have actually killed that Valkyrie and then went onto the tower, finishing off, giving me the early 1 crown victory. But unfortunately, I hesitated a little bit with that Zaspel, and the Valkyrie killed all of my Musketeers, and I wasn't able to take out that tower. And he's a pretty strong push coming up here on the left-hand side with the Sparky in the back, the minions, as well as the Giant. The P.E.K.K.A taking out the Giant pretty quickly. Gonna go ahead and use those 3 Musketeers once again to counter that Sparky. And here we are with 2 Musketeers going up on the right-hand side. My opponent is gonna go ahead and use some Goblins there, but the Musketeers take him out pretty quickly. And thankfully, there we go, guys, getting the 1 crown victory. Anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.